Senior Strategist with Solutions 8. And so John said, hey, I'm not going to be there. Let's get Caden on. So Caden's about as close to John as we're going to get.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I guess you could say I've been at Solutions 8 enough to pick up from John's teachings of all the changes that he does. Teachings, I guess you could say. Teachings, what would you say? He's kind of like a Yoda master, you could say.
Yeah.
Kind of teaches everything.
We call him Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
Wax on, wax off.
In honor of John, I have the beanie on, so I don't show my hair, so I can kind of fill in his place.
Yeah, you got the round head look and you sort of look like him.
Just, a couple of years younger, but that's really it.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to kick off with our first question from Joey Bidner. Shopify accounts have the option to track inventory for items that can be purchased when out of stock. Does Merchant Center recognize this out of stock and stop serving it as an ad?
Yes, it does. If it's synced through API, yes, it does. But one issue that you have to make sure is that obviously Shopify is being reported properly on in-stock and out-of-stock items, and then, it'll transfer over.
Wow, that's an easy one for the first one.
Yeah.
Don't keep those easy ones.
Flying in, all right, yeah.
All right, Steve, I'm using DSA to send ADTL traffic to my smart shopping campaign. Yes, smart shopping is still active. Which bidding strategy is best for my DSA campaign in this case? Currently, maximize clicks. That's unusual. The smart shopping campaign is still active. DSA, maximize clicks. I think from memory, John's preferred method or bidding strategy for that is maximize conversions, isn't he?
Yeah, just because you can prospect out from whatever you're getting. Using DSA smart traffic. Yeah, I would say, DSA generally is going to be, we like to use it as sort of like the prospecting side of things to find other keywords. And so the best option that we like to use is, using maximize conversions with that.
Yeah.
We actually did use that strategy previously with smart shopping as well. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Maximize clicks for a campaign strategy will give you clicks. It won't, that's all it will give. It doesn't utilize Google's AI for conversions. It's going, well, I want clicks, you're going to get clicks. It doesn't factor into it won't factor in the potential of someone to convert, and it'll just get you clicks. That's my experience with it. It just clicks.
A quick point on that as well too, with max clicks, depending on the type of traffic and keywords you're targeting, if you're pushing out like certain content is going to be like, okay, this user is lower on like the totem pole of like most likely not to convert, but they'll click on the ad to maybe search around and like get information about it. Google will optimize for lower cost clicks as well too. So the quality of traffic we've seen tends to go lower as well, depending on which medium you're using.
Yeah, you get cheaper clicks, but the conversion rate generally suffers, doesn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes in certain instances on certain channels, you'll get like bot traffic as well too that'll start to prioritize because it just clicks on the ad and it's just a new user and lower CPCs.
That's it. And we have Joan. Joan's back. Joan likes to do like 4 and 5 step questions. So
okay, I'm ready. I think.
Current setup: product A and B hybrid. Product B selling in hybrid. Product A only PMax. Started 6 days ago. Should I do product B PMax only, or will start cannibalizing hybrid PMax?
Let me read that again.
Product A and B hybrid.
Product B selling in hybrid. Product A only in PMax started 6 days ago. Should I start? So the first thing that I would say off the bat when it comes to segmentation is making sure that you have your URLs excluded. That I would say that's probably number one, because even though you might not have shopping on one campaign versus another, meaning like you have product A on campaign A and then product B on campaign B, it's still going to overlap with DSA and remarketing. So it's something you have to look out for. Is the way that we try to segment those better is just going on and either turning off URL expansion or having segmented for exclusions per each campaign from the sitemap on the website. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's what I found works best when it comes to search, pulling it out of that. When it comes to remarketing and sharing audiences, it's very hard to kind of pull it away from that. But the dynamic or marketing when the product is not in there will not show, but it might show another display ad if you have that. I think, yeah, none of these are feed only, so I think that hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. Jones back. Jones number 2. Should customer lists, other lists be in its own asset group for PMax?
Ooh, this is a good question. We've found with customer lists, it depends on if you have omni-channel. I would say with customer lists, it tends to gear it towards if you have an omni-channel network, it'll start going after users from that network because it'll build a lookalike audience from that and then just remarket and find similar people. I generally don't like to use customer lists as much if it's omni-channel. If it's not omni-channel, then you run the risk of in the future, if there's an issue that pops up where it's like, hey, we did really good on Google, now we want to run Facebook. It's going to be very prone to capturing that audience from Facebook onto Google. So it's just kind of a risk you have to be aware of whenever you run warm traffic signals like that. And that could be, website visits, customer lists, all converters, that kind of deal.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. You know that script that Mike Rhodes released a few weeks ago? I was looking at the impressions. We had the customer list. And when you were looking at the impressions per asset group, the customer list impressions was about 3 or 4 times more than any other signal. But it wasn't converting better than any other signal. So, yeah.
Long story short, I would segment it if you're going to run it, if you have enough budget, into a separate campaign. We're we're kind of in between on we want to try to move away from the hyper segmentation and be more geared towards themes versus segmenting audiences.
Yeah. And either way, even if you don't put the audience in there, Google could go after it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Casey Snow. I have seen several companies have duplicate feeds for PMax. What do you guys recommend?
Question on that would it be for separate regions? Because that would be normal, but if it's for the same region, I'm not entirely sure on that one. Duplicate feeds for PMax. What do you guys recommend? I mean, wouldn't you just get duplicate products then if it's both polling on there?
You could do. You could create supplemental feeds for, say, your best sellers, or impression 0 clicks, or and then
you could use it for split testing and then have them pull separate feeds. So I guess that could be a use case for it.
I don't think if 2 exact feeds, they'd have to have different products in the feed. Then that makes sense. But if they're all the same product, there's no use.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is you would duplicate the feed and then test out different product titles or descriptions or whatnot, and then use that as a factor. But it's hard to split test with Performance Max because it is going to carry over to other Performance Max campaigns. So that's just something to keep in mind there.
Jones back. What other asset groups should I add to optimize PMax? I have keywords from competitors and interest demo for $200 PMax. Should competitor URL be in its own asset group?
That is a good question as well. So one thing I like to do when I optimize Performance Max campaigns is I'll look for the supplementary campaigns insights. So for example, if you have an insight for brand search, for example, in the insight it shows this audience, making sure that audience is targeted in Performance Max is also a good idea. If it's an affinity, we seem to find a lot more value from Google's affinity audiences versus DSK's, competitor, URLs and things of that nature, because Google has a lot more knowledge about a user when they're inside of a affinity asset group or an affinity audience. Sorry.
Yeah, that generally tends to indicate moving forward with Google's intention to move into the topics API too, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think they're getting rid of DSKs. I think next month for I believe it's YouTube conversion based bidding strategy campaigns.
They're getting rid of keywords, placements, and there was a third one. Topics.
I think topics they're shifting over. Yeah.
No.
I know. Every 3 months, it's okay, we thought that it was going this direction. It's just some completely other thing.
I know. Fair income. Okay, Amaya, using PMax script to turn on/off asset groups to see difference in profitability. How else are you using it?
Using PMax script to turn on and off asset groups to see difference in profitability. So I tend to focus a lot more on creative when it comes to turning off asset groups because it does kind of blend over. Let's see, using PMax script to turn off. This was the script I think you were talking about, Glenn, that we were looking at. I'm not sure what script though.
Yeah, it basically it grabs all the data from the Performance Max campaign, extrapolates it, creates all these tabs, and then you can
Puts it in that
select.
Excel sheet, right?
Sorry.
And it puts
Yeah,
it in like that Excel sheet. And yeah, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Google
Yeah.
Sheet, and then you can look at the impressions, you can look at the clicks, and then you can look at conversions per asset group. Um,
I would say the number one. I've seen that a few. We don't use that to the degree I think that we could, but at the same time, the biggest thing with that is that if we look at an asset group and you have, like, for example, customer lists on one, and then you have another asset group with a different product, there's going to be multiple touch points regardless. And
mm,
so maybe this week it could show like, okay, this user interacted with this first ad, and then the second ad this week, and then the next week this user interacted with the third ad that it performed better, and the second ad didn't perform as well.
mm,
So it's very dynamic in nature when it comes to like how it reports data. And so I think whenever you turn off a Performance Max asset group, keep in mind that you could be affecting the future of next week's performance if that type of user were to come through the pipeline again. So that's why I like to optimize more off of creative, because creative, you can tie it to those multiple different audience signals. And
mm.
then you can see a pattern of, okay, this creative tends to perform on average more than this other creative, and then make optimizations that way versus making optimizations per each asset group.
Mm. One of the things that we're testing at the moment is creating asset groups by features and benefits. So we might create, say there's a product and we know that there's like 5 features or 5 benefits. So in one asset, we'll just focus on that feature or that benefit, or an avatar, and see what resonates, what's resonating, from a copy perspective.
Yeah, I think creatives is probably one of the best things to look at first.
Mr. Chow, what do you guys think about having 2 websites, 2 Google accounts bidding for the same product in Google Ads? The competition has recently acquired another website, similar niche.
It
2
depends
websites.
on the bid strategy. Two Google accounts bidding for the same product in Google Ads. I mean, you're gonna essentially, if worst case scenario, you're the only person. I'm just making up a scenario, but if you're the only person in that niche and those are the only 2 websites that have the product, you're just gonna ramp up your CPCs.
Yeah.
So I've seen people that, I think Ed Leake actually talked about this, where he had early stages of, I think it was early stages of Performance Max. He had like a brand focused Performance Max and then like a cold traffic focused Performance Max. So like there's different use cases for having like 2 separate accounts. But yeah, I would say if you're bidding on the same exact product, you run into issues of bidding against yourself.
Yeah, then you've also got to, from a compliance perspective as well. You've got 2 websites. You're going to need 2 locations. You're going to need 2 contact. Like if you had, you might hit a hurdle with, unless you've got different phone numbers or different addresses. Yeah, I know that we don't have any clients that are doing that strategy.
Yeah, it's a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be worth it.
It's like the old days of doing backlinks. You could find a little hack and go, yeah, and then Google just shuts you down, smash
Yeah,
it.
it works for like a couple months and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, boom, and then you get penalised and get smashed. Joan, should I scale hybrid PMax campaign?
What do you mean by hybrid PMax? Do you mean like, for example, like a PMax without listing groups and then one with only listing groups? Not really sure what you mean by hybrid PMax.
He'll be back. Dylan, when talking about driving data into the account, what can we do beyond customer list and newsletter database plus correct conversion tracking setup?
So there's a couple things you can look at. Like I said earlier, I mean, well, if you don't have any accounts whatsoever, you don't have any information on like, different campaigns that have already been run. Um, I would start with just looking through the general affinities right away. I like to start there first and then kind of have an idea of like what your client avatar is first, and then roll
Mm.
that into saying, okay, this is where we want to start. because sometimes what advertisers do when they start off early is they'll add like all these different audience signals, like, oh, it could be this person, I could be this person, it could be this person that wants my product. But in reality, deep down, okay, I've seen more of these types of people come for like my product or service. And so it's best to start out with just very like small, like targeting, meaning very hyper targeted towards one affinity, not like multiple. I don't really know of another way that you could pull in data into your account outside of uploading customer lists. You could do like website visitors. That's slightly more broad though. That's going to be already given out though, depending on if you have UA linked to it or not. Yeah, I would say those are probably the main ways that I would drive data in the account. Glenn, do you have anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, it all depends. And is it a brand new site or is it just a brand new Google Ads account? If you've had a website and it's been up for a while, go into Search Console and have a look at where you're getting most of your traffic organically and use those keywords as maybe custom segments, build them out as an audience. And then conversely, go into Google Ads and have a look at what are the affinities inside analytics. Did I say Google Ads or analytics? Analytics.
You said analytics, but it's fine.
Yeah. Go and find the audiences and affinity audiences inside analytics and find out where you're getting most of your traffic from analytics. Analytics will tell you, because if you don't have that, if you basically need to try and get data inside Google Ads, so Google Ads goes, oh, okay, these are the people that are converting, and then you grow from there. But if you've got no data, use Search Console, look inside Search Console and look inside analytics for those affinity audiences and keywords. That's what I'd do.
Also, look at if you have another advertising platform like Facebook, look into there and see if you see audience signals that can overlap into Google as well. I've kind of done that on the reverse end for some clients as well. Yeah, that seems to be very helpful.
Yeah. Joan, 2 listing groups. Oh, so this is the hybrid PMax. 2 listing groups are evenly split: impressions, clicks, conversions, 6% conversions rate, CPC 0.68 notice. How should I optimize? Conversions.
I would probably want to know like what the lag is in terms of the conversion lag. I mean, it could be a perfect 50-50 split. Like you never know in terms of that. It depends on the audience as well too. I guess there's a lot of factors that would go into it, but I would look at number one, if you have a winning product that's within the listing groups, because it says they're evenly split impressions, clicks, and I guess that's not asset groups. 6% conversion. How should I optimize? You could run tests on adjusting the feed if you want to see if you can like optimize the overall feed, like titles and descriptions. Is one thing I would look at. I would also look at the traffic too, because that's kind of a big factor when it comes to it. I've seen typically like a 6% conversion rate is going to be either really high intent, like niche traffic, or it's brand traffic. So that's the first thing that I would probably be worried about is making sure that you're getting, like, for example, if you have a Facebook campaign or some other campaign type and it's sending over traffic, PMax might just be scooping up all of that warm traffic. And that's why the split is pretty even there. So if that's the case, I would look into the audience signals, maybe take out customer lists, go for more like we talked about affinity audiences, and then more of like that cold traffic signal, see if you can get more or get prospecting out further if that's the case. But I'm not sure if that would be, I'm not sure what else you would optimize on that just based on the knowledge that I see here.
6% conversion rate is pretty good. I'd be looking at the products and seeing, is there a skewed product, couple of products that are just getting all the conversions, which means your other products might not be getting enough love from Performance Max. So you could probably split them out into their own campaign so that they're not, sucking up all the spend. But it depends. You'd have to have a look at the products, but 6% conversion rate for Performance Max is pretty good. Something's going well. Find out what that is.
Hopefully it's cold traffic.
Yeah, hopefully. Casey, do you ever switch someone from max conversion value to max conversions? If so, do you start a new campaign or update the current campaign? How does that transition look?
Good question. Yes, and there is some tests that we're doing now for testing out max conversions to get further away from that, branded traffic, because you're not restricting Google as much to go after conversion value. what I've seen generally whenever that happens is I'll see a lot more listing groups sort of have like tests in terms of there's a lot more split on the budget across multiple products. So that's the first thing I would look at is you'll probably see results drop. You'll see overall CPC go up, and you'll see more products being tested. If you're, for whatever reason, I've never seen this happen, but if for whatever reason the budget isn't able to spend, it'll immediately start spending the full amount of budget from the carryover.
Mm.
In
Yeah.
terms of starting a new campaign, I think what we like to do, generally speaking, is if a campaign is going heavy into, and I'm just giving you a scenario, if a campaign goes heavy into warm traffic, then we will typically start another campaign in order to refresh the targeting because the algorithm's already favoring that warm traffic, and so we want to pull it out of that.
Mm.
For PMax.
Yeah. We actually did this with one of our accounts. It was running on max conversion value. It was converting, but the numbers weren't stacking up. And what we saw that there was a lot of single item order, a single product orders, but all the orders were about the same price, same products, same pricing across the board. And we knew we had to get a certain TCP cost per order to start getting profitable. So we changed it to max conversions, put in a target CPA, and bang, took off. Exactly what we wanted. Now we're just pulling down this target CPA and increasing the spend. So it's not for everything. I did watch a webinar with Fred Valles the other day with a Google shopping guy, and they were saying their preference, I was saying, was always use max conversion value, but it might not necessarily fit everyone's situation.
Yeah, like sometimes, I think John actually mentioned this too a couple of videos back where if you have products that are very similar in cost, you allow the algorithm to prospect out more. If you don't restrict it based on value, just have it restriction based off of just conversions themselves. Like if I have a bunch of like $50 products, then conversion value is not really, you're restricting it unnecessarily, I guess would be my way of saying it.
Okay, Luxury Blades, can you answer my 2 questions from the very beginning? Okay, sorry about that, mate, but I have scrolled all the way to the top and I cannot see any question from you, Luxury Blades. So could you just post them in there again, and we'll get to them. So yeah, they're not showing in our questions, mate. Sorry about that. Joan, creating assets with Google Optimize in Market and Affinity. I saw your videos regarding asset groups.
Gotcha. And this was the previous question, probably.
Creating assets with Google Optimize in Market and Affinity. I saw your asset groups.
Reading the chat on the right so I can get the full.
Can you see that? So I think that was his. What other asset groups should I add to optimize PMax? I have keywords from competitors and interest demo. No. It's hard to go back and try and.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where it started. Creating assets with Google Optimize and Market Affinity. I started video regarding asset groups. And the first question was, you already created the URL.
Oh yeah, should I scale? Yeah, so it was should I scale hybrid PMax campaign, creating assets with Google Optimized in Market Affinity?
Oh, I gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I found that Google Optimized list. I've tested this a couple times. We're not fully solidified it yet, but if you're on a low budget, it tends to act more like a lookalike audience, and then that lookalike audience kind of shifts over into more like conversion-based, like customer lists, because PMax doesn't restrict you as much in terms of like what audience you're going to target. So it's just kind of one red flag about having a Google Optimized list. In general, if you don't have that setting turned off on the expansion for your audiences, I think it's like audience optimization, I think is what it's called. Creating assets with Google Optimized Affinity. And this was the question about PMax, right, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, I generally like to use PMax in a way of, it's sort of like the brain to everything else. So in other words, you have the Performance Max campaign, and then you optimize based off of the signals that you get across the account as well. Because PMax is already going to reach out and find other people. And so when it comes to audiences, it's best to have, for example, you test out a top of funnel YouTube campaign or a DSA campaign, or you look at your brand campaign and look at the insight tab, go to the top converted index, and then look at that as a way to say, okay, I can pull this audience and pump it into PMax to add more pretty much to the fire that PMax is going to be just churning through audiences and trying to find people. And with assets as well, just kind of highlighting that point too, you can test multiple creatives with separate assets. So you can duplicate it, have the audience signal still lumped together, and then have the creatives just slight variations on that. It's just going to take a little bit to test those different variations.
Thanks, guys, for the DSA bid strategy, but consider on depending on smart shopping to remarket to the DSA traffic, hence why I thought max clicks would be good. Yes, no.
Yeah, I guess the risk comes down to kind of what we said earlier, where it comes to like, if the audience that you want to remarket is good, the good news about that is that obviously it's going to be not as expensive clicks, and you're going to really know if that person is going to convert or not. It's just a big risk to where if something's going to eventually optimize for cheaper and cheaper clicks, and it's going in that pathway. And so that's just kind of the risk that you run whenever you have max clicks. It could work. Like, we've seen it in accounts that does work. But for the most part, it's just keep in mind that it's going to optimize for cheaper and cheaper traffic, and you might not want to remarket that cheaper and cheaper traffic.
Yeah. Unless it's, no such thing as a brand DSA, is it? DSA is a DSA.
I mean, yeah, you want to make sure you're excluding brand from DSA as well. Yeah. But I mean, who knows? Like, it could work for like, the next 5 years, like it could find the audience and just stick in that audience and not want to optimize lower and lower, because maybe there's not cheaper clicks on there that would, click on the ad. Yeah, and it's just kind of the risk that you have to be aware of with that. So when I run DSA, like, that's why I guess at Solutions 8, we like to prioritize max conversions a lot more often than like max clicks or something of that nature, is because you protect against bot traffic, and then you can optimize your conversion action itself. If you're like a lead gen account, you can optimize that, and then that would affect, the overall type of traffic you're getting. But since it's e-com, it's a lot easier for us to just say, yeah, max conversions is probably a better bet for prospecting, even though your CPCs will probably go up.
All right, you ready for this one?
I don't know.
Dun, dun.
Oh, okay. We had a long conversation about this today. Glenn, we talked about this for probably, I want to say, like an hour total, maybe hour and a half.
Yeah, I've gone down the rabbit hole bad.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, we're seriously looking at how we can use it. ChatGPT, it's based off the OpenAI's GPT-3 model, which has been out for 2 years. The ChatGPT in its current format, in that chat format, was released 2 weeks ago, and it's had the fastest adoption or sign up rate in humankind ever. It's like, it had 5 million registrations in 5 days or something, and it's just growing exponentially. GPT-4 model will be released either this month or next month, which apparently ChatGPT-3 operates on 175 billion parameters. GPT-4 will be 100 trillion parameters, 500 times more powerful than GPT-3. So we're running tests at the moment in how we can utilize this tool. It's definitely a disruptor, but yeah, we're still playing with it.
It's like there's so many possibilities for it that it's like you think of like 20,000 different things every day, and you're like, oh, can I do that? Can I do that? Can I do that? And so I'm curious to see what the next version is going to be like, if it's going to be more like fluid, because sometimes you'll like type in something and then it will pump out like, oh, I don't know, or like there'll be like an error that pops up. So you just have to be very specific as to what you type in and get out of it from there.
Yeah, it's all about the prompts that you type in there, and there's a lot of people. this thing, it's constantly evolving as well. The devs are changing the code all the time. Like there was a couple of prompt hacks where you could tell it to ignore its boundaries and go beyond those boundaries, and then they patched it, and then there's been another workaround, and so this thing's going to go backwards and forwards for a while yet. I'd say that within the next few weeks we'll have some use cases for it in Google Ads that we'll test. So that's where we're at with GPT. Yeah, it's a
It's a lot.
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a
It's
lot.
really
But
a lot to
yeah,
think
well,
about.
obviously, well, with videos that we'll be releasing and these lives, anything that we sort of find or we think that's interesting, we'll share with everyone. So stay tuned on that front, Amaya. Mr. Chow, what do you guys think of testing new PMax automatic?
PMax campaigns, I assume, yeah.
3 asset groups, 1 catch-all audience, 2 feed-only plus audience, 3 feed-only.
Gotcha. So there's a couple things that tend to happen with feed only that we don't. There's certain use cases for it. Feed only is a lot more prone to going after and remarketing people versus just generally like a normal, just fully built out Performance Max campaign. I would say in the instance that you're describing right there, it makes it difficult for the algorithm to prioritize like testing something outside of the shopping network, which is, I mean, it could be fine. I've never really tested that before because we generally like to segment them out so we know exactly what the Performance Max campaign is doing. Like a feed only will act this way, and then a catch-all Performance Max, which will be like just everything in it, will act this way, and then we can kind of use them in different use cases. With this scenario, you don't really know. You have to track it and keep in mind where it's going, and each I mean, honestly, almost like every week, if not every day, which medium it's testing. Because in some cases, like I said, we've seen if you have a lot of omni-channel, it's going to go probably more into the feed-only audience and just show display remarketing or dynamic remarketing on that. So I would just be aware of that if you test all 3 that way, that you'll probably run into the issue of, I don't know what it's doing in terms of this week it did this, and now it's leaning, and now it's pretty much just a feed-only campaign. Because I've seen campaigns that'll pump out like YouTube really aggressively for like the first like month, and then immediately cut that off and then jump into like search or shopping or some other network. So we like to use Performance Max to do that more so than just have it kind of be blended in that source there, because you run into that issue I just mentioned previously of it's potentially going to go more aggressively into the feed only side of it, which is just going to be remarketing.
And I would imagine that analysis will change as Google keeps giving us more data, more reporting data, and they are getting better. What they give us, if it would be amazing if they could say, well, this is your data you're getting from shopping in search, shopping in display, shopping on YouTube. This is the data you're getting from display. This is the data from Discover. We're just guessing at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, we can track YouTube spend, shopping
Yeah.
spend, and then get a feel for if it's either in search or another platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say just the biggest thing with asset groups is like they're so intermingled together inside of Performance Max that they just overlap. It's very, very hard to like segment them by asset groups.
Dylan, are you using ChatGPT or AI tools at the moment? If so, how are you using ad copy research? Yes.
The question, yeah. I mean, I personally right now, like I said, we're just talking about all the different use cases for it. I think reporting, Glen, is something that we were looking into recently as a way to kind of like pull data out and see if we can, understand a lot more clearly, sort of like what that Excel sheet we were talking about was. But that's really the only thing that I would say we're really doing right now in terms of that. Maybe ad copy.
Yeah, look, ad copy is one of those things. Headlines, mixing up headlines with making headlines question based, add some humor. Creating marketing ideas, business ideas for clients around events, and yeah, it's. I've been going down the rabbit hole of trying to get it to give me ideas rather than just giving me copy. turning it into an idea generator. Give me ideas on things. Yeah, like I said before, we're playing with this, and we've more or less got the whole company now inside a dedicated brainstorming. We're going to try and get all our brains together and just bounce around with ideas and see what we can come up with. But yeah, we'll
It'll
see
probably
what
all
happens.
change in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it'll
exactly
all be
right.
for nothing. Who knows?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the industry of Google Ads sometimes. So,
Mr. Chow, does excluding certain regions and postcodes send current PMax campaign into learning?
well, not necessarily on the actual like title of it, meaning like you won't see it go into learning. I've never seen that happen.
No.
But it will, if you don't have any data in those regions that you are now targeting, then it will eventually, yeah, it will take a lot more time to prospect out. And you'll see CPCs kind of fluctuate
Yep.
based on your bidding strategy.
Mm. Joan, if I add 2 to 3 more asset groups, should my budget go up exponentially? $200 for 2 asset groups currently. I want to add more asset groups to optimize.
That's a good question. So I guess this question kind of comes down to the purpose of the asset groups. If it's for like creative testing, then that's just going to be a time sink. So either do you want to wait with the budget you're at now? If you're getting performance, it'll slowly test based on your bid strategy. Or do you want to know right away, is this going to work or not? Then you want to add more budget to it. But generally looking at Performance Max campaigns, we look holistically at the account. We don't look at like specific asset groups because that leads into the question of, like I said, things are going to kind of blend together and carry over. Like we can have a top of funnel YouTube campaign that maybe found the person and then they carry that person over to Performance Max, which then remarketed the person, and then they came into brand. Like, so when you look at accounts and look to scale certain campaigns, you want to look at it holistically, not individually based off of each asset in the account. That's why, like I said, I want to push more on like the creative side for asset groups is something that I would look to first. And then, like I just mentioned, if you're testing creatives, then have sort of like your pain tolerance figured out where you're like, okay, if I increase the budget, realize that it's probably going to prospect out more, which means that your overall ROAS is going to potentially drop. So just be aware of that when you if you want to add in more budget to it.
Oh, there's a follow-up from Joan. I have 2 products in one asset group, product A and product B, but only product B was getting conversions. John told me to segment out to product A, PMax only.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just because the whole reason for that is just so you can push budget towards a specific product. And then that's one of the only things that we can actually do inside of Performance Max when it comes to segmentation. Well, 2 things, but one of the main things is listing groups. That's like the main thing you have control over. Search, similar, but not as similar with the URL expansions.
Yeah, it's just to make a push because my competitor is running PMax and selling product A.
Gotcha. When you look at your competitor, are you concerned about like the shopping network? Are you concerned about like a certain point of Google where you're saying, okay, I'm getting a lot of conversions on the shopping network, and so I'm going to try to run another Performance Max campaign? Because you could just run standard shopping for that, and it'll push it out further towards whatever network is working as well too. So don't feel like you're trapped in like Performance Max, because Performance Max will remarket a user from a separate campaign.
Casey, have you ever ran an upgraded feed-only PMax at the same time as a full build PMax, with one doing a lot more remarketing and the other being more cold, same product set?
Yeah. I think FA has been doing this. We tested this a couple times. I really like this because so there's a couple things. If you max out the remarketing for warm traffic, then top of funnel PMax tends to go after cold traffic. I normally use feed only with another strategy. So like I'll use like top of funnel, YouTube, or some other type of strategy involving like a top of funnel, strategy, and then using feed only to sort of capture all of that. I've blended them together, and I've seen feed only in most cases take over the majority of the brand traffic. However, you have to max out the budget in terms of like you have to make sure that feed only is capturing as much traffic as possible of those users that are coming in that are warm traffic. So then the top of funnel can then prospect out and not take away that other warm traffic.
Oh, Jarm again. Not one asset group, one PMax campaign.
Gotcha.
Right. And then he said, John said, do not turn off the hybrid because it's getting the sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Don't
If
kill.
it's working, don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
don't
change
kill
it.
the good. Don't kill the golden goose.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just when we talk about like cold versus warm traffic, it's mainly just things to look at and translate that over to like your be all end all result in like Shopify or whatever platform you're using.
Yeah. The 6% conversion rate was for product B only. Product A was not selling at all,
Oh, I
but I
see.
know my competitor is running PMax with massive budget. John said competitor has cash. If any, so Google will not tank his PMax.
Gotcha. I mean, it depends on the purpose of you wanting to push the other product. If it's more profitable, that could be a use case for it. Like, and it also depends, like I said, on the networks we've seen shopping. I mean, it kind of just depends on what medium is working and then what medium you want to push more into. Because, like I said earlier, it's going to remark PMax is going to remarket everything, regardless.
Mm.
Glenn, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No. David Leon, running only standard shopping, ETAs, and DSA ads. How would you introduce PMax? Full build out with brand excluded, build out with top sellers, limit PMax budget to a certain percent.
If standard shopping is working, there's a couple theories on it. So you could pause the listing groups and then just run a Performance Max campaign without shopping.
Mm.
That's something that you can try. That's a safer bet. If shopping's working, you don't want to disrupt it. I don't know how you have it segmented out, meaning if you have like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel shopping, like how that's organized. But I would say if shopping is working, then you would definitely want to exclude the listing groups then from PMax if you want to test with it. And then if DSA is also working really well, then what you can also do is turn off URL expansion, and that's going to limit it as well too. If you want the audience to carry over to PMax, then I would turn on both then. But
Yeah.
you run the risk of you're taking it out of that controlled shell and moving it into like an expansive campaign. It's going to depend heavily on your external factors, meaning if you're running omni-channel or not.
Have you found when you're running all things being created equal, you've got a standard shopping campaign with all the same feed products as this PMax? One, the PMax generally cannibalizes most of the shopping, then, doesn't it? Because it gets priority. Yeah, I've seen that too. If I've had a standard shopping campaign, because you might, what I've seen sometimes is you go into the reports and you've got the reports for the MCC ID, and you can see the shopping, and then you look at Performance Max and go, oh, geez, shopping is getting all of it, but hardly. There's not much going in Performance Max. I've turned on a shopping campaign, thinking, oh well, that should mop it up, but it doesn't. It just doesn't.
Yeah. I've seen shopping. We used to do a strategy before early on where we would have a shopping campaign. We still do this in very like unique scenarios, but we'll have like a shopping campaign supplementary with specific products that will force it to compete with Performance Max. So Performance Max will then go after those products. But you run the risk of like budgeting, and if the budget is already fully spent, you're already getting conversions. Like there's so many other factors that kind of come into play with that. But
Yeah, budget.
yeah, but we have used standard shopping to supplement and push PMax in a direction and DSA.
James, for product A, PMax has been running with two asset groups and same audience signals as a hybrid for about 6 days to try and get competitor market share. Yeah, see, it's also going to, you have to look at your conversion lag as well. 6 days isn't a lot of time to see.
Yeah, and you also have to realize too that it's going to optimize outside of just competitors. Like you're not targeting just the competitor. It's going to say, okay, I found these people. I'm going to now branch out and go after other similar people like that. So that's kind of the struggle with Performance Max is you can't turn off optimized targeting. It's just stuck in the account.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which would be great. If we could turn that off, that would solve Google. If you're listening to this, please give us that option. Please. It would solve so many problems.
We could get so granular with how we would build those asset groups out. But unfortunately, It's sort of like they've gone, hey, there's this optimized targeting feature inside display. We're going to put that on inside Performance Max. No. Uh, Luxury Blades. Okay, so how to utilize Google Merchant Center if I have a brick and mortar with multiple locations and online? Also, is there a proper way of adding GMB to AdWords? I feel like I do not have it configured good. Well, yeah, Google My Business. The GMB is obviously Google My Business. That should be linked with your Google account. And in your assets, which used to be extensions, there should be the ability for you to add a location in there. It should sync automatically. Um,
Also for Google Merchant Center too, there's also other things you can add in for like in-store inventory or in-store pickup that would also be beneficial.
yes.
There's also something, and Glenn, I don't know if you know this, but we did find out. I was talking to Onkar about this, and I think Tressie, shout out to Tressie, I think she found this. But in accounts, since Google is shifting away from local, just local campaigns, meaning that, and I haven't seen this before, where if you have an account and then you don't have any local campaigns in it, you can't create another local campaign. Now it's only defaults to Performance Max. But in the case that you have a local campaign created in the account, you can still create a local campaign inside of your Google Ads account. However, there is a setting in Performance Max where if you were to select when you go down and do a campaign build and you select the location option for that, it'll formulate you to a Performance Max campaign, and then you go to Ad Preview and Diagnosis, and you'll see a lot more location-based ads in there across all the networks. So I don't know this for sure. This is kind of like brand new information, but we've seen that as like a potential for people that are running, like, for example, like if you have a GMC connected to your Google Ads account and you have a brick and mortar, but you're trying to get online sales as well, that might be a good option for you, is to do that. But yeah, like I said earlier, prioritizing the in-store pickup and then the inventory that you can do as well with that. And then like Glenn said, the location extension, now called Asset, for where you're located, and that'll show up underneath like a search ad or something of that nature.
Just seeing if Performance Max allows you to put location extensions or assets. No, it doesn't look like it.
You can link your GMB to it. And then it will populate it. But I would say if you're looking for just local with Performance Max, try that theory that I just threw out there as well.
Yeah. Cool. Do you guys use seasonality adjustments for all accounts on Black Friday, for example?
I think that's case by case.
Yeah.
We look at it manually for the most part. And this is something that I've heard other agencies do as well. Like you'll look at literally Black Friday is like hell week for marketers because you're staring at screens, like watching hour by hour. Okay, we have more. Let's put more into it, kind of thing. And since we use maximized conversions, it's a lot more budget focused. And so we have to adjust based off of what we see in the account, like literally like every hour kind of deal. So that's how I've typically done it.
Yeah, we don't really. No, I think I've used it once for a seasonality adjustment inside the setting, but no, I don't think we've actually got that on as a policy with Solid, have we? As such.
Yeah, we just say work harder during Black Friday week.
Late on breaks. For a local service-based business, is the best approach, generally speaking, to allocate a majority of the budget to long tail, phrase and exact match, average CPC $85 and CPA $558.70, or are there there's more.
I think maybe like at those costs.
Costs.
Okay. Yeah.
Does it make sense to go further up the funnel to optimize for form fills?
Good question. Don't know the industry, so never mind. Okay,
no, that's the first. I just put the first, and it's that. So if you want to look at the first part of the question, that's the second part of the question. Same person.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. So I would say the first thing is I don't know the industry, so I couldn't get specific on that. When it comes to optimizations for just lead gen in general, I always like to start with bottom of funnel first, just because it's the lowest hanging fruit. So like what you're doing, I'm assuming those are searched based on the CPCs. Top of funnel gets kind of tricky with lead generation, because when you optimize for a conversion action, um, the more top of funnel it goes, the higher chance that you're not going to get the good leads that you want to optimize for on the top of funnel network. So I would start first with going up the funnel, like you were talking about, if you want to see if you can get lower CPCs and reach a broader audience. I would then make the conversion action slightly easier to fill out if you're on the search network, because it's generally a safe network to be on. And then test and see how the CPCs line up with the volume with that, along with the quality of traffic that you're getting, before you go into another network that would be like YouTube or Discovery or something of that nature.
Good answer. Jan, in one of the videos, Regina says that analytics doesn't track about 20% of all purchases. However, in that was shown in that video, inside the Google Ads, the conversion value 1x. Inside the Google Ads. Oh, hang on. This is a follow-up. Was about 50% higher and purchases about 80% higher. Some of my accounts have similar differences, but they never perform as good as the ones with about 20% difference.
The biggest thing with analytics is it's going to go off of like first and last click attribution.
Yep. Hang on.
And it's still.
I think he's got more, mate.
Okay.
I've tried scaling the former ones, but the problem is that the reported conversion value does not reflect in total sales at all. I ended up just spending much more with almost the same revenue. Even though the Google Ads conversion value was supposedly higher, the analytics number seemed to have much more accurate. On the other hand, when I have about 20%, there's more. Wow, this is a long question.
I like it.
Difference in the account is much easier to scale, and it also reflects on the total revenue. Is there a way to combat this? I feel the algorithm just thinks it's doing really good when reality it isn't, if the difference is up to 100% in conversion value. That's it. Sorry if I was a bit long.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I think the first thing to look at would be, I guess in analytics, you're looking at overall. So for example, that could be just overall lift. That's why it's a lot higher. That would be the first thing I would look at, because let's see how it's shown in the video inside Google Ads. The conversion value is 1x. Yeah, so analytics can report everything, not just Google Ads.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you're looking at it holistically or specifically at Google Ads inside of it, because that is a factor as well. I've never seen analytics unless it's set up incorrectly. I've never seen like specifically the tracking for Google Ads to be higher than, the tracking and analytics for Google Ads to be higher than Google Ads itself.
Yeah, it's always less. Also, what is your conversion that you've set up? Is it a Google Ads conversion, or have you set the conversion action up as inside Google Ads, not imported it from analytics? We generally look at the data inside Google Ads. We that's not a policy that we use. We never import a Google Analytics conversion or a goal as a conversion, because exactly that reason. Analytics is just off. And that's the reason why Google Analytics 4 is coming out, because GUA it's not accurate.
Yeah, it's like, I would say it's like 60% accurate, maybe 70%, based on the results you're seeing. And we used to use it as like a backup method. Like for whatever reason, if like, the G tag or whatever, like client doesn't update on the website, and then the tag disappears, but UA is still linked through an API or whatnot. We use it kind of as like a backup, a secondary, so we can track and see the difference in some accounts. But we never set it to primary.
No. Joan, follow up. We've got 20 sales on Wednesday, 4 sales the next day. It seems to be up and down for PMax. Yeah. Like I think you said it yourself, Joan, it's only been running for 6 days. It's going to bounce all over the place for at least a few weeks. So let it go.
Yeah, and think about the overall budget difference on if you're running Facebook as well. If Facebook is like a $20,000 budget and then Google's like a $2,000 budget, then you're in a very rough scenario of you're probably going to get a lot of warm traffic from Facebook, which might not be bad. It could be good. Like I said, I have accounts that, we support Facebook, and if we turned off Performance Max, then Facebook ROAS would just drop.
Yeah.
So
Said, is this PMax remarketing to get the 20 sales? Always remarkets.
yeah, PMax is definitely going to remarket. Yeah.
Oh, geez, we got 5 minutes. Righto.
I could try to do rapid fire.
Oh,
I
no.
don't think I can do what John does, but
We should be right. We should be right. Have you tested Product Hero setup with PMax?
yes, we have. I think FA was doing this as well too. Yeah, we've done that before. I've generally found it really, really helpful just because you have, essentially one product you're targeting. You already know it's going to work, and then it's going to branch out from there. It's going to still remarket other products. So, like, for example, one of the videos that John talked about, he had shown that analytics. So, for example, someone can look to buy a certain product A, but then they actually convert on product B. So the numbers might be a little off there. So you could use the hero product as also an introduction to the brand, and then they buy another product through marketing through, another campaign as well. We've seen that work.
Joan, he has a much higher budget.
Gotcha. Yeah. So here's an advantage with he's running Performance Max. So Performance Max is going to blanket across everything. So it's going to look for a user, and it's just going to go for whatever medium it thinks is going to work best. If you're aware of which medium is winning, you can focus your ad spend more on that medium that's winning, and then be a lot more competitive to that competitor because they're spread out more broadly. So if shopping's winning, build a standard shopping campaign and then run that against your competitor versus a Performance Max campaign. You compete on a different playing level.
All right. There should definitely be a question limit or time restriction between questions. This is the wild, wild west of YouTube channels. Just flying by the seat of our pants here.
It's a good test.
Amaya, have we transitioned towards more asset groups equals worse results?
I wouldn't say more asset groups equals worse results. I think it comes down to the segmentation. So if you have a lot of themes, more asset groups is not bad. If you're pretty much what we found is that Google is going to test out. I think there was a post on this too, Glenn. I think this was like a month ago or something where we were talking about how Google prioritizes the creatives over the audiences. And so it will say, okay, this creative worked, and then it will tie all the audience together to that creative. It won't segment out the audiences. Yeah, so segment by theme, don't segment by audiences as much anymore is what we found.
Dave's here. John looks different. He does.
A little bit different. Yeah, feel different too.
Must be the hat. Late on breaks, managed service tech provider.
Okay, perfect. So if I remember this question right, so that was about the lead generation. So you can, if it's for SaaS companies, you can get pretty far down the funnel. If they're a tech provider, there's probably some sort of purchase action that takes place. That is awesome because if you can track that purchase action, then you can go further up the funnel and not run into the bot traffic issue that lead gen can fall into for top of funnel mediums.
Especially if it's offline too, you can import them. If you can import them, you'll give Google can tie up the conversion data. Then you're going to get better data.
Yeah, and like I said, if you can report it every day or at least twice a week, that's great. Or even tie Zapier with it as well.
Yeah, true. Dave, lane and break sounds like a car repair. Joan, the 20 sales is for hybrid campaign. That's been for 6 weeks. Oh, 6 weeks. Right, gotcha. Running and a lucky last. Luxury Blaze, completely agree with the question, especially a follow-up question limit.
I wonder if we can extend. I don't know if we could do that. We can extend the question box so it can just be one massive question, and then we can just see it all versus having it be broken apart.
Well, yeah, maybe we could look into that next week. We're just looking at the screen and it just speeds through. So I don't know.
Also, John is going to be making a lot more videos as well too. So feel free to ask questions below in those videos as well that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, John and Chasm are getting back onto the YouTubes. They've had their holiday
for a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. No more now.
All right.
Back
Thanks,
to
guys. Thanks, Caden. You're a legend.